I am returned. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this topic. And before I start, let me just say thank you to everyone who has joined me on Patreon. I have been trying to put up content. It has been a great motivator to really commit to my schedules, and it means so much to me that anyone was able to put any kind of money around. As someone who also donates to a bunch of different Patreons, I know how that bill can look at the end of the month. You'll be like, who am I subscribed to? But when you look at it, whenever I look at it, I'm always like, I'm supporting people who I really believe in. So I'm very glad that people have enough faith in me and belief in me and my work and what I do to support me. So for everyone who did, thank you very much. And just to everyone who likes, subscribes, comments, that means a lot too. I do not take for granted this platform that I have on this YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about something that I actually did write about for the Mary Sue, link below, but I wanted to get more into it, and I think it's part of this larger issue of talking about what race bending is for people of color versus what I think a lot of anti-SJW people think it is for us. So for context, this is about the show Batwoman, which airs on the CW. It's part of the Arrowverse. I have not watched it yet, so this is not anything that I have no opinion on the show as a whole. I've heard good things about it. I know that everyone hates the one black woman on the show because of course they do. So what I heard was that they were going to be introducing the character of Julia Pennyworth to Batwoman. And before the episode officially aired, I saw from my internet brother, he posted on his Facebook that the character was going to be played by a white actress. Her name is Christina Wolf. She was in Royals, I believe, and she was going to be playing Julia Pennyworth. The problem with that, of course, is that Julia Pennyworth in the comics is a mixed race black woman and looks visibly black in the comics. I had to write about this because I was like, I don't know how this was able to happen with no sort of like editorial content about it. Like no one was writing about it. I didn't see any articles when I written up about it, and so I talked about it. When she was asked about this change, the showrunner Caroline Dries basically said that they wanted to put the character in the Batwoman suit, but felt like it would not be able to fool anyone if there was a visibly black woman behind the cowl. I'll put the full quote link to it below, and I felt like that was such a poor excuse because this is a franchise in which, you know, the character of John Diggle has had to hide himself and pretend to be Oliver Queen, and they look nothing alike. The actor who plays Diggle is like at least a foot taller than the actor than Stephen Amell, so I don't even understand that. Not to mention there's technology they could have used. There are multiple other ways that they could have incorporated the black actress or a mixed race black actress to play Julia Pennyworth, and so this excuse just seems very feeble. It was just disappointing to see them waste an opportunity to diversify the show even more so. As much as there are non-white characters on Batwoman, I'm not trying to take that away from the show, it looks diverse from what I've seen from the promo images. We know from watching shows like The Flash that just because you have a lot of non-white characters on a roster does not necessarily mean that they are all getting great storylines, especially because the reaction to Juliet Pennyworth, for what I'm seeing from AV Club, is so positive. I wonder if people would have had this same reaction to the character if the character had also been black. And what I find also very aggravating is that they say that they really wanted to bring Juliet into the story, that they really wanted to use her, and the fact that in the comics it's implied that she's into Kate. They wanted to use all of those elements. So they thought that that character, as she is existing as, you know, her as the black woman, was worthy and important and interesting to bring into the Batwoman show, but her race was not. And what I found really interesting is the backlash that I got for saying that. They'll say it's hypocritical. Every time race bending happens, we have this argument. We have this thing of like, well, if they took T'Challa and made him white, that would be a problem. And it's like, I don't understand. Actually, I do understand. I do know that we live in a culture where people really want to have these aggressive headbutting arguments of like, if A is bad, well, if you do B, then it must also be bad. There is no sense of nuance. There is a willful ignorance about the history, the implications, the statistics concerning these issues. And it's like, I always try to argue these things in good faith. You know, like I try to be very like forthcoming about the fact that like It is not the same. For the sake of just trying to have a good faith argument, I am going to talk about why these things are different and the kind of nuances about this issue. So first of all, race bending white characters into non-white characters, when it is done in good faith, is usually done to add diversity to a work that is mostly white. They are changing it for film and television as a way of correcting maybe an oversight by the author or the era that it was created in. The majority of characters in film and television are still white. They still get the best storylines. A lot of white ethnic minorities like Romani and Jewish characters often also get erased, either in who gets to be cast as them and that identity as well. But when it comes to characters that are like Romani, like the Maximoff twins or Dick Grayson, that gets entirely erased as well. So it's like even within whiteness, there is always this assimilation towards only one kind. We have an overwhelming amount of white characters in most things, unless it is specifically a non-white centric show like a black show or an Asian show, and even in them they will have a token good white character just to make sure everyone's happy. So therefore, when you take a character like a Juliet Pennyworth, who is a modern character created within the New 52 era, who was created so that there would be a original, for the most part, non-white character, it is crappy to then remove that character. That's a character that wasn't being race bent. That was a character that was organically non-white. That's why it's a problem. Yes, there was an early version of Julia Pennyworth that was white. Completely different backstory, killed off in crisis, hasn't existed for like almost 30 years, I believe. That part doesn't matter. You know, and it's frustrating because we are always being told, create your own characters, have your own characters. And we had one. Even when we do create original characters, like Miles Morales or Riri Williams, a lot of time they have white creators and they don't often get really good storylines. A lot of times there's a lot of backlash to them for just being legacy characters that are taking on a form of a previous mantle until like something like Into the Spider-Verse comes out, or, you know, to have Evie Earwing writing for Ironheart so that we can actually have a nuanced depiction of Riri Williams. You know, those characters often don't get to be in adaptations because people want the traditional character. People don't want to see the second generation. They want to see the proper first generation. You know, even with Justice League and stuff like that, like Barry Allen has not been the most popular iteration of the Flash for a really long time. I think a lot of people really love Wally the most, but he is still regulated to cartoons. But when you get the live action versions, you know, it's Barry Allen. People like to hold on to that legacy. And, you know, we don't have, even within the major black characters in comics, we don't have a Cyborg movie, we don't have no Bumblebee movie, you know, we have Black Lightning and Luke Cage on television. Luke Cage is gone, you know, like we don't have those big tentpole black characters being made into these shows. And so what ends up happening is that we get a lot of these race-bent variants of, you know, semi to important characters where a lot of anti-race bending people don't understand or get. Is a lot of time people of color, we don't really want race bent characters. Yeah, we can have like the fan art and have our metas about why it would work that certain way, but overall what we want are well written original characters that can fully belong to us. I love Superman. That's my man. I love him. And I can see him as a non-white person, but I have never ached to have a non-white Superman. I think it would be possible. I think it would be written, I think it could be written really well. I think that there have been examples of like AU versions of Superman that are other races, but I would rather have Steel get his own movie, you know, again, like a better one, and you know, that would be my preference. However, if they do put a non-white person in the Superman role, I'm gonna support it because I'm a fan. Is it my preference of how I would want that kind of representation? No. But at the same time, I'm not going to deny an actor, especially if it's an actor I like, the opportunity to play a big name role. The other reason why, you know, people of color will want a race-bent character is as a way to sort of correct certain tropes. For example, with Doctor Strange and Iron Fist, the reason why people wanted an Asian version of like those characters is because they were tired of seeing the white rich man goes to Asia to get the spiritual power, is better than all of the Asians at doing, you know, the specific, you know, magical arts thing. And race bending was not just a thing of like, let's get Asian representation. It was saying, hey, can we at least have these characters be, you know, Chinese, Asian, so that you're removing the mighty whitey exploitative, you know, yellow peril aspects out of the character and giving this storyline that takes so much, you know, from Asian mythology and culture back to an Asian character to portray that. I think what also aggravated me about the Julia Pennyworth thing is that people will say, if a black character gets race bent, you know, into a white character, the earth will explode. And that did not happen. You know, like, my piece, you know, for the Mary Sue was the only one I saw that brought it up at that point. There was no outrage about it except from a small sect of people, because partly because people don't know that character, they didn't know that, they don't know who Julia Pennyworth was, and I get that, but when you know, you should be aware. And I just wish that we were in a space, in a culture, in terms of comic book fans, where we could have actual thoughtful conversations about these issues and not just get it wrapped up in stuff like social justice warrior. It really ignores the layers of what Black and brown fans actually want. We spend so much time having to defend racist garbage that we don't have the space, the freedom to actually engage in a discourse of what we are lacking from when these race bending things happen, from this representation. Because I'll tell you what, like, considering that most of the race bent characters that I have seen in television have always been the most hated, the least, you know, get the least screen time, have the least amount of presence, get screwed over by fandom constantly, there's very little that I can say has been gained from having that race bending happen. Like, I love that these actors get work, you know, Candace Patton, my queen. But like, look how long it took her to have a squad. You know, this recent season has been one of the best seasons for Iris because she actually gets to do things and has people on her team, you know. Just looking at the Little Mermaid, you know, casting news. Like, you look at that, it's like Disney gets to have the clout of having a Black Ariel to counter all the like fatigue over the live action Disney adaptations, right? And that's like their win. But you look below it, it's like they've used the outrage culture to promote it. We're probably not gonna get a Black Triton, a Black Ursula, and we're not getting a Black Eric. So we still don't have a Black Prince, which is representation that we have never had. There has never been a Black Disney Prince, period. And like, or a Black love interest. Like, cause you know, Shang isn't a prince, but he is still like, I think, held in that kind of like oeuvre. You know, we've never had that, and we could have had the opportunity to have that with this. They chose a white dude. You know, like, I know I personally have never asked for a, you know, a Black Little Mermaid Disney adaptation. I've only ever asked for more people of color in Disney movies and for them to stop turning Black people into animals for 2/3 of the film. I love Tiana, but this form that she has is 5 minutes. As somebody who used to make Disney animated movies, I can tell you it's very hard. Her and Aurora are the hardest two to make videos for because they only do things for 10 minutes of screen time. Okay? And most of that is the song. Okay? And she don't even have the same art style for half her song. Okay? It's frustrating. I want to have better stuff for Black and Asian, Latinx, etc., trans, etc. characters on our terms, not on the terms of the scraps that people would like to give us. And when we do have characters of color who exist and are doing well, and you want to use their storylines, but you have one weird gimmick that it makes it kind of a little awkward, then change the gimmick. Because you literally chose to erase a Black person's identity that existed in comics for one scene, because of one scene, then find a way around that, which to me speaks volumes about how much they care about actually having real representation. Also, so on my Patreon, I let my patrons vote for the next video, like the longer form video. I know this seems long, but I mean like a more editorialized essay type thing. And they voted on a deep dive into race on Game of Thrones and my feelings about that. And again, thank you to my patrons, and I will see you guys soon. Deuces.